Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, everyone, for attending. My name is Douglas Carver. I am the acting director of the Sentencing Commission at the moment. First of all, I wanted to welcome you to this orientation and congratulate all of you who have received a grant in this round. As you all know, this program's been around since roughly 2019, keeps expanding and getting better and stronger, largely thanks to all the faces that you see on the Zoom who aren't me. Everyone on this team does an amazing job, and I'm incredibly grateful for what they do. One note I want to make: on the 30th of April, we are going to have what we call our convening of grants participants. Those of you who are attending who have been involved with the grants for the last couple of years might remember this. This is when we pulled together members of the CJCCs, grant recipients, and other interested parties, legislators, some of our commissioners, etc., to get together for a day to talk about grants, to talk about ideas around grants, to brainstorm and just sort of come together and both celebrate the process, improve the process, and learn a little bit about what we're doing in our various judicial districts. So pencil that into your calendar, 30th of April. The plan is to have it in the same location we've had it in the past for anyone who might have attended previously, which is in the continuing education building here in Albuquerque, UNM's continuing education on basically University and Indian School. I just want to flag also, as I'm sure you all are aware, the legislative session is about to start. It kicks off a week from tomorrow. And that's important for the grants for two reasons. One, we're asking for extensions to the current monies for the grants, so that we had to give 6-month grants this round because all the money expires at the end of the fiscal year. We're hoping to get an extension to that money. We're also asking for more monies for the grants. So I would encourage you at this point to reach out to any legislators you might know or anyone involved in the policy process and say, hey, the Sentencing Commission grants they're asking for additional time to spend money and they're asking for more money for the grants. Just let them know so the word gets out through your all's networks about the grants and the fact that there's a request for more money out there and a request for extension in time. That would help us a lot, and it would help you all a lot, because the more money we have, then the more that we can disperse out to the communities across the state. Again, thank you all for being here. Appreciate your being part of this orientation. Appreciate the work that you all do in your various communities. And I'm now going to pass it over to Jamie Goldberg. Jamie.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Jamie Goldberg. I'm a liaison that works with the Sentencing Commission. I've been doing it now for a couple of years. I contract with them to work with the CJCCs around the state. A lot of you may have seen me in the CJCC meetings. I'm in reference that you can go to. I'll give you my information in just a minute so you can come back and call me if you have any questions or anything. Right now, I currently help manage a couple of the district's grants as well. That'd be the 8th, the 4th, the 10th, and the 1st. And if you have any questions at all, I mean, our job here is to make sure that you guys succeed, you spend your money, and you do it properly. If you have any questions regarding if an expenditure is accepted or not, you can definitely reach out to us ahead of time so we can go over it and review it to make sure it does meet the criteria for your grant. It's important. A lot of people will think something may or may not work, and until you kind of get a feel for it, it's good to contact us here at the commission. I think all the people at the commission want to see these grants succeed. We want to get the data from them. We want to see how they work. So our job is to make sure that you guys fulfill year end and spend the money and institute it in the programs that you have established for these grants. Again, so if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can contact me at jgoldberg@unm.edu. That's jgoldberg@unm.edu. And I'm going to give you my cell number as well. My cell number is 505-507-2222. And I look forward to working with a lot of you. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it over to, I believe, Jeremy.
We're going to go to Carrie first. We're going to move to Carrie first.
Hi, everyone. I'll take it from here. So my name is Kiri Thiel. I'm the staff attorney at the Sentencing Commission. I'm going to share my screen, and then I will be talking to you all about the Apply software, the grant management software that we use to collect invoices and reports. And then I will also be going over those invoicing and reporting requirements with you. So let's see here. Then I believe everyone can now see my screen. All right. So let's get started. So first of all, as Jamie just mentioned, we do divide the grants up amongst 3 grant liaisons here at the Sentencing Commission. We have a lot of grants at any one time, not only from this round, but also from the previous round for this fiscal year, and even earlier grants that were awarded for more than 1 year. And so because we have so many grants and because we want you all to have a contact at the Sentencing Commission who really knows the ins and outs of your grant program and is able to answer your questions, help you overcome any obstacles in your path, and make sure that your grant is successful, we do divide the grants up amongst the 3 of us so that you have one person who knows your grant really well. So this is the contact information for our grant liaison. So you can see Jamie handles the grants out of the 1st, 4th, 8th, and 10th judicial districts. Nancy has the 3rd, 5th, 6th, 11th, and 12th judicial districts, and I handled the grants from the 2nd, 9th, and 13th judicial districts. And you may notice that the 7th judicial district does not currently have a grant liaison. That is because we have not received any grant applications from the 7th judicial district. So if you have any friends there, please pass the word along. We would really love to have grants from every judicial district in the state. So one more quick note before I get into the meat of the presentation. We will be sending this PowerPoint, all of our PowerPoint presentations, out to you in the form of handouts. We will also be providing you with a link to the recording of the presentation and any other templates that we talk about throughout the presentation. So you will get all of this information in your inbox at some point this week. And so you don't need to write this down unless you really want to. You will be receiving all this information. So first, I'm going to go over using Apply. And if you were the one who submitted the application for your organization, you already have an account for Apply because that is where you filled out and submitted your application. This is also the software that we use for collecting invoices, all of the grant information, the quarterly report, the final report that you'll be submitting later this year. It's also where you can find your grant agreements uploaded, as well as, I mean, everything that you have ever submitted for this grant or will ever submit for this grant will all be right there. That's our hub for all of the grant related materials. If you were not the person who submitted the application for your grant and you need to set up an account, this is the site that you will go to do that. It is fairly straightforward, and of course, we're always here to answer any questions that you have. So once you are in the Apply site, this is your grant application dashboard. One quick note about that, the Apply site refers to your grant project as an application. From cradle to grave, that is referred to as your application, which is not the most intuitive thing, but it's also not something that we can change. So when you're using Apply and you see it refer to your application, just keep in mind that that is referring to all of the materials for your entire project and not just the application that you submitted at the onset. So you'll see listed here any applications that you submitted, and you'll want to go to your current project, the one for your current project, which may be the only one you have, just depending on whether you've had previous grants or submitted previous applications. You can also get back to this page from anywhere in Apply by clicking on the My Applications tab at the top. But to open up your project materials and get started, you will click on the green Start button. It may say Continue if you previously opened it. So once you open up your project, this is what you're going to see. This is where you access all of your grant materials and all of the tasks that you need to complete. So right here at the top, you will see the list of your current tasks. These are your outstanding tasks that need to be completed. And then down below, you'll see the list of your previous tasks, the ones that you have previously completed. At the top of that list will be all of your tasks from the initial application you submitted. If you scroll down, you'll also see the tasks from the award follow-up period. You'll also see the task for your signed IGA, and that is where you can access that information. You'll also see over to the side here, you'll see the owner of the grant listed. And then if you have any collaborators that you've added, you'll see them listed here as well. And this is what I want to draw your attention to right now, because you'll see the Add Collaborator button. So we want to take a second and just talk about collaborators for your grant. So collaborators can view, edit, and complete tasks in Apply, but they can't submit anything. The way that Apply is set up, only the person who is the designated owner of the grant can submit materials in Apply. We wish that we could change that. You wish that we could change that. Unfortunately, it's just not a capability that Apply has at the moment. And so you're going to want the owner of your grant to be the person who's submitting everything. And you can change that at any time, actually, and we'll go over that in a second. But first, you'll need to add anyone else who's going to be working on your grant as a collaborator in Apply. We do ask that you add anyone who's going to be working on your grant as a collaborator, even if you're not going to be making them the owner, asking them to submit anything. We send out all of the notices regarding your grant via Apply. And so if you have not added someone as a collaborator, they're not going to receive those notices. So anyone who you want to receive messages about the grant, to be able to see the grant materials, to be able to potentially complete any of the tasks for your grant, you're going to need to add them as a collaborator. To do that, you just click on that Add Collaborator button, and a screen pops up where you can put in their email addresses. You can determine what type of access you want them to have, whether you want them to be able to view and edit the grant materials or view only, and you can add a message here, help, please do all of this grant stuff for me. That's where, or you can leave that blank. It's up to you. But then you can send the invite, and your requested collaborators will receive that email invitation. And they must accept the email invitation to be added to the grant and Apply. It will have a link in that email that they can use. If you run into any problems with that, occasionally we get someone's email server just doesn't like the emails from Apply. Let us know, and we will work with you to troubleshoot that. Again, only the owner of a grant in Apply can submit the materials, including the invoices and reports that are required. That submit button will always appear grayed out and non-functional for the collaborators. And so you may need to change the owner of your grant in Apply to the person who is going to be submitting those materials, because otherwise, if you fill out the materials in Apply and you need to contact the person who's designated as the owner to submit them, that can just delay your whole process, make things a little bit more painful for you. I'll go over how to change the owner in just a second. But when you're determining who should be the owner of the grant and Apply, again, it's up to you. We do recommend that be the fiscal contact. Generally, your fiscal contact is going to be the person who's responsible for submitting the monthly invoices, which is the most frequent task that you're going to have in Apply. We don't want there to be any delay in submitting those monthly invoices. We'd really like them to be submitted timely, not just because it makes our lives easier, but also because we know that you want to be reimbursed. And if those invoices are submitted late, it just increases the chances that your reimbursement is going to be processed late. So when you're looking at your grant in Apply, you have your list of collaborators here on the side. Underneath that Add Collaborators button. And you'll see next to the collaborators, you have those three little dots. If you click on those, you'll see this little drop-down menu shows up. You can change the access that your collaborators have to view only or view and edit. You can remove collaborators if someone leaves your team, and you can also click Make Owner. And as soon as you click that button, The change happens instantaneously. There's no confirmation process. That person becomes the owner of the grant in Apply, and you, as the former owner, become another collaborator. So that is it for that task. So I am going to go over briefly now how to access the monthly invoice materials in Apply, and our finance team is going to go over in a little bit more detail some pointers for submitting those materials. So the monthly invoices are due on the 15th of each month, or it's going to be the following month after the expenses were incurred. If the 15th falls on a weekend, as it will for the next 2 months, your invoice is going to be due on the first business day following the 15th. So for the next 2 months, that's going to be the 17th. We do try to send out reminders. I won't get into why we can't send out an automated reminder. It's just a quirk of Apply. But we do try to send them out manually each month, but we do ask that you don't rely on the reminders. Things come up, and sometimes those don't go out as soon as we would like them to. We ask that you add the monthly invoice date to your calendar. It's not going to change. It's always the 15th or the next business day following the 15th. We also ask that you submit an invoice even if you had no expenses that month. So that would be a $0 reimbursement request. This ensures that our records are complete, that we're not missing any reimbursements. And it also helps to prevent reimbursement requests from bottlenecking later in the process when everybody would like to be reimbursed before the end of the fiscal year or at the end of the fiscal year. So for the monthly invoices in Apply, you will see that they have 4 components. The monthly reimbursement request form that's built into Apply. It's a quick form that you fill out right there on the site. The cover letter, which you'll see is marked as optional. It is marked as optional because it is not required for $0 requests. It is not optional otherwise. If you are submitting any kind of money request, you do need to submit a cover letter for your request. You will also need to upload an Excel workbook that we will provide to you that gets updated with each reimbursement request. And then, of course, you'll need to submit the supporting documentation for your grant's expenses. You will also be using Apply to submit the quarterly reports as well as spending plans for your grant. Those will be assigned as tasks with the monthly invoices in Apply when they are due. Because your grants are only 6 months, you're only going to have 1 quarterly report, which will be due in April. And then you'll just have a final report at the end of the grant. We'll go over the spending plan more in just a minute. So your monthly invoice cycle, you will complete the monthly invoice, submit it and Apply. That will go to your grant liaison who will review the invoice. As long as all of your expenses are congruent with your grant agreement, then they approve the invoice and that goes to our finance team. They will process the reimbursement request, and simultaneously your next monthly invoice becomes available in Apply. So that means that monthly invoice materials are only available 1 month at a time. You can't submit more than 1 month at a time. This gives us a chance to catch and correct errors in what you've submitted before those errors are repeated the next month. We don't want you to have to go back and redo months of reimbursement requests because you missed something in the first one and repeated it each time and then submitted them all at once. This is going to save you time. It's going to save us time. But it does mean that you need to submit each month in a timely manner. We also ask that you submit all of the invoice materials in Apply. This makes sure nothing gets lost in our email. So the quarterly and the final or annual reporting requirements, these are required by statute. For you all, again, because these are 6-month grants, you are not going to have annual reports. You just don't, your grants aren't that long. So you'll have 1 quarterly report and then the final report at the end of the grant. I will show you here in the statute. This is in the Crime Reduction Grant Act, that it does require that you evaluate your project quarterly, provide that quarterly report to us for a review, and then provide that annual, or in this case, final report to the Sentencing Commission by October 1st of each year. So, and I'll show you the deadlines in just a minute. Here we go. So the quarterly and the final report forms are going to be in Apply. You submit them right there, just like you do with your monthly invoices. The relevant portion of this right here for you guys is that the fiscal year 2025 Q3 report will be due April 15th. And then you will not have a Q4 report since your grants are only 6 months long. You'll just have that final report, which by statute is due by October 1st. So, and once those tasks are assigned, you'll see them show up in the list of your current tasks in Apply, and that's where you'll access them, complete them, and submit them. When you open up the quarterly report form in Apply, this is what it's going to look like, and it does have some fields auto-filled with the information that you provided in your application. If that information has changed, your primary contact has changed, email, anything like that, there is a place where you can correct that information and update it for us. The questions in the quarterly report, just so that that is on your radar, we simply ask how much you've spent to date, that you give us a summary of your project's current status, describe any barriers or difficulties that your project is experiencing, and let us know if you need any help from us. We also ask that you submit the updated spending plan for your grant. And again, our finance team is going to go over that spending plan in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. So that's the quarterly report. It is pretty basic. It should not take a long time to fill out. If you have any questions or need any help with it, you can let us know. But we really, we didn't plan out all of these reporting requirements in order to be onerous on you. We just need to get a snapshot of where your project is, and if there are any obstacles that you're facing that we could potentially help you to overcome to ensure that your project is successful. So your final report, similar to the quarterly report, it's going to be available in your assigned task there and Apply, due by October 1st. We just want to note for you that that deadline is, again, set by the statute. We can't change the deadline and we can't grant an extension to it. I think that you have a sufficient amount of time following the end of your project, June 30th, to fill out and submit that final report. So when you open the final report and Apply, these are the questions you'll see. We want to know the extent to which the project met its intended goals. We want to know the strengths of your project, as well as any difficulties you encountered. We want to know what you learned over the course of your project that you're going to be sharing with your CJCC. And we want to know whether the crime reduction funds were sufficient for your project. And if they weren't, we want to know how that impacted your project. If you have any suggestions for the crime reduction grants process, you can share those with us. And then if you have any other files that you want to share with us, you can upload them there as well. Although your data for your project will be shared in another more secure manner. So if you need help or have any questions along the way, you can always contact your grant liaison. You can contact nmsc@unm.edu, which goes to all of us, or you can use the Apply site up in the upper right-hand corner. Sorry, guys. Upper right-hand corner, there's that little eye in a bubble. And if you click on it, the drop-down menu allows you to contact the site administrator. It's going to do the same thing as emailing us. But you can also look at the Apply FAQ there. And if you're having any technical issues with the site, that's where you can submit a support request as well. So we also have available for you an online help library that's at the Sentencing Commission's website. You will click on Crime Reduction Grants, select resources for grantees, and then you will see there the quarterly report and final report are there as PDFs for your reference. And you'll also see a library of how-to videos for some of our most requested tasks. So that is all there for you. And then, of course, we're all here to help as well. So if you have any questions, again, you can put them in the chat, or we will be taking a few minutes, hopefully at the end, to answer questions. as well. So thank you all for your time today. And I am going to hand it over to Jeremy Seymour, who's going to be handling the finance portion of the presentation.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Seymour. I'm an accountant. I work with Amanda Armstrong and Jamie Cook as well. And I'll be handling the finance portion. So I will share my screen. Okay, so for starters, we'll consider the cover letter. As mentioned, this is required documentation, and it really helps us to make our process a lot more efficient. So a number of this is a kind of a suggested format. You can do whatever you please, or you can copy this verbatim. You want to note the invoice number, which is the 2025-06, which yours will be whatever, 2025-07, 10. The point is that we do not want the application number from Apply. We're not really comfortable with referencing that for our purposes. And then the reimbursement request number, that just refers to the month, which is based on our fiscal year, which begins in July. So July is month 1, August is month 2. So January will be month 7. And then just some basic verbiage here. And then we have an accounting string we ask you to include on the cover letter. And this is if you're a user of Share for your reimbursements. What is Share? It is New Mexico's enterprise resource planning system. It stands for Statewide Human Resources Accounting and Management Reporting System. And for that, you'll need your business unit, which is a 5-digit unique identifier. For a state agency, your fund, which is another 5-digit number given by the state, and then department code, BUDREF, class code, revenue code, etc. If you're not using Share, then we'll just need your remittance address so we know where to send payments. The second thing we'll look at is the workbook. This is also required documentation. And one of the main points here is please do not change any formulas. This is an Excel format. So when you're filling in your monthly values here, you basically just need to fill in these values and they will be totaled automatically at the bottom here for your monthly total. And then for your grand total, again, it's automatically populates for the month. And then for total expenditures and remaining budget balance. So the only thing we need you to populate are the top numbers here. And then of course, scope of work reference and description of expenses. Okay, and then supporting documentation. For supporting documentation, the most important component is proof of payment. And these items typically include receipts, payroll registers, or canceled checks, a DFA voucher, which is a screenshot of a payment tab of a voucher entry in Share, or a DFA warrant, which is just a check from the DFA. One side points I always like to point out is that we cannot reimburse for gross receipts tax for goods. Services, yes, goods, no. So if you're submitting receipts, please remember to remove the gross receipts tax for goods from the grand total. Otherwise, we end up sending back reimbursements for a change of 97 cents less or something. In addition to proof of payment, other supporting documentation is necessary depending on the scenario. For instance, for vendor requests, we'll also ask for an invoice and a purchase order along with your proof of payment, which could be a warrant or a voucher. For employees, there are a number of scenarios that can come up. For travel, of course, proof of payment, a DFA voucher showing a payment tab, receipts, conference brochures, hotel and airfare with itinerary and receipts, things like that. For wages, that's probably the simplest, most straightforward one. We're basically just looking for proof of payment, which can be a payroll register or a canceled check. Documentation for events is going to be event flyers, receipts for purchases, sign-in sheets, DFA vouchers, showing payment tab, and then client services also, sign-in sheets, invoices, and then DFA vouchers, pretty ideal. Some common hiccups we've run into is improper documentation. So wrong month's receipts or invoices, missing documentation, duplicates, no reimbursement request workbook included. Again, that is required documentation. Sometimes a document doesn't balance with a reimbursement request, and that's not a problem. We just need you to explain to us what's going on. Oftentimes there are other sources of funding that you're using as well. So we just need an explanation of why you only need a portion of the total amount. And then simple stuff, transposed numbers, workbook numbers don't match. And then excessive documentation. On the supporting documentation, just try to be clear and concise. And, really, we've probably all dealt with auditors or know someone who has. And so really, what would an auditor want to see? They're going to want to see something just basic that tells the story. Sometimes too much documentation raises more questions than answers. And for us to work with it, it slows down our process and decreases our efficiency in getting your reimbursement taken care of. All right, so get out of here. Let's see, and get back to screen share. Okay, so just the next thing to show briefly. As mentioned, all of the materials going to be available to you. We do have a lot of great videos on our website as well, and they'll answer a majority of your questions. So if we go to our website at NMSC, the NMSC website, unm.nmsc.edu, and navigate from the Home tab to Crime Reduction Grants. And then Crime Reduction Grants, you can navigate to Program Resources. And under individual videos, a number of things, some of what Carrie went over as well, how to add a collaborator, how to change an owner, required supporting documentation, monthly reimbursement requests. So I was gonna just play a couple minutes of one of these videos. They're all pretty short and they're step-by-step and very user-friendly. So I just wanted to give you a brief example on one of these. Let's see, we can.
Jeremy, it looks like the video isn't playing. It looks like it's only playing in the full screen mode. It might only be playing on your end and it's not capturing it on the screen share.
Okay. Okay, well, I don't know if that worked out, but any rate, I highly recommend the videos. Oftentimes we receive questions from grantees and we'll send a video with a timestamp, check out minutes 3 through 4 or something. So, and they're concise, step by step. So highly recommend using those. And that was all I had for the finance part.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. I'll take it from here for the last PowerPoint presentation. I'm Nancy Shane. I'm the Director of Research and one of the liaisons. And I'm just going to talk about spending plans, data sharing, and evaluation. Okay. So the spending plan was mentioned by Kiri, something that is due at the beginning of the grant period and also with each quarter. So for you guys, just once at the beginning and once in the middle of your grant cycle. So the purpose of these are to, sorry, I'm adjusting my screen a little bit. They're just a planning tool. It's not very high stakes. The purpose is to help you and to help us anticipate adjustments that might be necessary. Adjustments are pretty common. They usually require an amendment, and that's, they're common. They take a little bit of time, so it's nice to be able to anticipate them. And that's the real reason that we want to use these spending plans so that you can anticipate those in advance. This is an empty template. There are basically just 2 pieces to the spending plan. On the left, you have the summary page, and on the right, you have a detail page that applies to each quarter. So here's an example of a detail page that has been filled out. It's showing the expected expenditures for 1 quarter. Everything in gray has a formula, so you don't need to fill anything out in the gray areas. Normally it's like it's pulling information from somewhere else, or it's summing up, say, the total at the bottom of a column. And that information is transferred to the summary page. So you can see here the anticipated costs for July, August, and September, summed to $6,700. And that appears on the summary page as the anticipated expenditure for that first quarter. After you make expenditures, you would fill that information under actual expenditures. You don't need to break that down by month or by type. It's just a total for the entire quarter. So again, this is not a very high stakes document. It's just, keeping track and trying to anticipate changes. And part of the reason that we want to do that is that, Kiri sort of mentioned that when grants can't use their funds that they've been allocated, often for pretty good reasons, we like to recover those funds and make them available to others. Okay. So you've all signed a data sharing agreement. These data are used for the system-wide analysis of the grant that is required by statute. An MSC completes this evaluation and submits a report to the Legislative Finance Committee and the Department of Finance and Administration each year. The due dates for data are within a few months of the grant's end. Many of you will have that available as soon as the fiscal year ends and the grant ends, and that's fine. We use a UNM system for sharing confidential information called SharePoint. It's very easy to use, and we'll provide instructions for that as we get closer to that due date. The information that we ask for depends on the nature of your project, and there's 3 basic versions. Some grants do include more than one type of activity and more than one type of data requirement. This first one is the most complex of them, and it's meant for grants that directly support justice-involved beneficiaries. So we are asking a lot of personally identifiable information about those beneficiaries. That's why we want to use the SharePoint program. And the reason is because we want to be able to correctly identify your beneficiaries, the correct person, because we gather lots of outcome information about them. In fact, we gather 3 kinds of data about justice-involved beneficiaries: court compliance, disposition of the current case for some programs, and recidivism. Here's just an example table from our latest report that's looking at court compliance. And what I'd like to take particular note of is that what we're doing is aggregating across grants. We don't designate in this report which grantees or judicial districts submitted the data. For example, in fiscal year 2021, we funded 3 treatment courts, and all of those beneficiaries for the 3 court programs are combined for the purposes of this analysis. So this table is showing that across programs, beneficiaries were issued fewer warrants after enrolling in a pretrial program or a treatment program. So we do recognize that programs are not necessarily intended to address all outcomes, and we do try to keep our analyses appropriate to the purposes of the grants. But, this is a very broad view, and it can't really reflect the unique characteristics of grants because we are combining things that might not be all that alike. This is the second version of data collection, and it's meant for grants that are hiring or retaining individuals so that we can attract or we can track the effectiveness of those incentives. So if you are hiring somebody who is overseeing a program for direct beneficiaries, then we're not interested really in this information about the employee. What we're interested in is those justice-involved beneficiaries. So this is really meant to address problems with attracting and keeping employees. And then our final version of data collection is meant for grants that include a component of training staff. So here, basically, we are just counting the number of people who benefited from that training. So what I've just shared are, sort of like the bare minimum of the evaluation requirements for the grant or the data collection requirements. You are certainly welcome to dig a little bit deeper into your project. This is a site visit that we did last September for the Resource Assessment Center, which provides case management services, as well as all kinds of basic needs resources for at-risk and justice-involved people in Cibola and Valencia counties. And this was just a nice way for NMSC staff to sort of understand and appreciate the challenges that grantees are experiencing and hear about all the great things that they're trying to do as well. So, obviously not every program is amenable to a site visit, but it's helpful. Might be helpful for you. It's certainly helpful for us if it is a project that where seeing things on the ground is a helpful way for you to explain your story. There's also evaluation that you might wish to do yourself. You're more than welcome to do so. We have some grants that have sent us, for example, evaluations of the training programs that they've done, sort of like pre-test, post-tests. And if you want to dig it deeper into your project, it's often very helpful when you're applying for other grants. And we welcome you. You're certainly welcome to hire a private evaluator if you'd like that kind of help. And we can also give you some tips about how to do that too, if you're so interested. And that's the end of my slideshow.
All right, great, everybody. I think those all went pretty well. So at this point, we wanted to open up to questions from anybody. So feel free if anybody has any questions. We do have one waiting, so just 1 second. But if anybody has any other questions aside from the ones in the Q&A section, please hit the raise hand button on Zoom and we can allow you to talk. First, and forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, but Firuza asked at BCSO, they have separate people to submit the invoices and program reports. So how should they go about assigning ownership of the grant in Apply so that they can, because they need multiple people to be able to submit documents. Kiri, I think you might be able to answer that one best.
Yeah, sorry, we do run into this problem with many grants. It's not uncommon that one person does the reporting and another person does the monthly invoicing. Unfortunately, we don't have a way around the fact that we have to pick one owner to submit materials for each grant. We do recommend that the person who's going to be filling out the monthly invoices be the person who acts as the owner of the grant and Apply, because you will have to submit those each month versus the quarterly reports obviously are only required quarterly. And so you'll just have to coordinate in-house when those quarterly reports are due to make sure that that person can complete that as a collaborator and then let you know when they're done so that you can submit the invoice with the quarterly report filled out. So I'm sorry we don't have a better answer, but that's kind of the workaround that we have to use at the moment, and I hope that it works for you.
Okay, next up, it looks like we have Edward, who asked, were these reporting requirements used in previous grant years, or are they new to this round of grants?
I can take that one as well, guys. The reporting requirements have not changed. They are the same as they have been since the Crime Reduction Grant Act was first put into law. So yeah, they are the same as they have been for all previous grants.
Okay, and then it looks like Jeremias Silva had their hand up. I'm gonna hit allow to talk, and Jeremias, if you have a microphone, you can speak, or if you'd like, you can just put it in the Q&A section.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah, Jeremias Silva, Valencia County. I just had a question on some of the financial stuff. So I had mistakenly forgot to include some supporting documentation, and the question or the correspondence that was sent to me was to gather that supporting documentation and upload it into a previous reporting quarter. I tried to do that and it didn't, I wasn't unable to locate that previous, I'm sorry, not quarter, the previous reporting month. Is there a way to go back to, let's just say, for example, October 2024 and upload the documentation there? Or is that something that's going to be handled strictly via email? Thank you.
So this is going to depend on the circumstances. Sometimes the finance team, if it's just like one document or something like that, sometimes they will ask you to just simply email it to them. If they do ask you to upload it in Apply, they will have to reopen that upload stage for you, or your grant liaison could do that as well. So, but if you also realize on your own that you forgot to upload something, you can reach out to your grant liaison. Let us know, because we can reopen that stage for you and you can upload and submit it there.
Okay, do we have any other questions from anybody? Feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, thank you for attending. We'll just wait just a minute just to see if anybody else has any other questions, but I think, oh, looks like Jeff Romero does. All right, Jeff, you have permission to speak if you are able,
Yeah.
or you can just, yeah.
Just for those that are new to this process, those agencies that maybe it's your first year on this, I just want to say the team at the crime reduction grant is very helpful. I've reached out to them many times, and they'll get you running and make sure that your submission is taken care of. I did have a little tough time in the beginning because it's a little different than what we normally try to do with some other reimbursements that we prepare for other things. But I can tell you that the crime reduction grant team is really helpful, and they'll really walk you through everything that you need.
Thanks for that, Jeff. I appreciate those comments. These guys all work really, really hard, and I'm glad that you all recognize how hard that they work to make these grants a success.